evening and welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. We do hope you've had a great week and are staying safe. Tonight we wanted to share a quote from Michelle Obama, the former First Lady of the US. She said, "You can't make decisions based on fear and the possibility of what might happen. Here at Wealth Within, we find that people often make decisions based on fear, and they're fearful of loss, fear of failure, and fear of making the wrong decision. All these fears stop people from undertaking courses and giving themselves the best chance to become a successful trader." As always, tonight our aim is to educate and inform you, and in doing so hopefully allay some of those fears so that you can move forward. We'll also answer your questions as we bring you our upfront, no BS approach to all things stock market. Our main topic for tonight is cryptocurrencies crash. Is now time to buy or sell Bitcoin? Hello, I'm Janine Cox, your host tonight, and joining me is Dale Gillum, and we're Australia's most trusted stock market educators. Hello, how are you?
I'm super fantastic.
Should I welcome you to the show?
Yeah, you should welcome me to the show. About damn time you welcome me to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show.
I know, warm it up. I mean, it's been freezing the last couple of days. It's like we've been back to winter again.
You got your thermals on?
I know.
You need them?
No, I've just got the heater up.
Oh, have you?
We had this beautiful last few weeks, and then today, the last couple of days has been rain and cold. That's terrible, isn't it?
Do you sleep better in the winter or do you sleep better in the summer?
I'm pretty good at sleeping most times. But yeah, winter's probably a bit better.
Well, look, how would you go if someone actually made a sound like the cymbal on a drum? Bang, you know, that really loud sound that a cymbal makes on a drum?
I'd get my gun out and shoot them.
Well, that's what happened last night, but I didn't have a gun.
You didn't have a gun?
I'm lying in bed, obviously fast asleep, and the next thing, crash. And I practically jumped out of the bed. Meanwhile, the husband's still snoring away.
As we do.
Anyway, and I walked out and it's dark and I'm thinking, I'll check on the baby first and make sure that the little one's all right, and then go into the rest of the house, and it was pitch black and I didn't want to turn the lights on, so I'm looking around and then I started turning all the lights on.
That makes sense.
So is that about the fear side of things, the fear factor?
Definitely fear about what's
So I wasn't sure if someone had broken in, and then I saw the mischievous lid on the floor next to the sink. So that was my own issue when I washed the dishes.
So you had the jumping lid syndrome.
I did. So that destroyed a beautiful sleep.
All right, well, before we get into our first segment for tonight, again, we're going to be taking some live calls on the show. So if you do want to chat to Janine and I and ask us a question, then this is your opportunity to pick up your phone and call us now. The number you need to call is 03 for Melbourne 92909988. That's 0392909988. Now, I know that Janine and I are super keen to chat to you, so pick up your phone and get dialing right now.
While we wait for you to call, it is the third Tuesday in the month, and this means we take a look at world markets. So let's get into the charts.
All right, on your screen right now is the watch list that we have for all of the major indices around the world. And have a look at the surprise up the top, Japan.
Are you surprised by that?
Well, I'm not surprised by it, but Japan has been a basket case for how long?
Oh, a long time.
They've
just
time.
had Olympics, so therefore the Olympics in theory should have helped them a lot, but with
so
no
is
people
that
going.
A new theory about the Olympics happen and then the index of that country goes through the roof?
That's a theory.
That's your theory.
But, you know, they didn't have all the crowds this time, so go figure. How
I
does
had the
that work?
Coca-Cola theory. Because, you know, Coca-Cola was always the sponsor of the Olympic Games, so Coca-Cola would also go up during the Olympic Games, the stock price.
That's a good one.
It is.
We'll have to check that out at some stage.
Cool, so let's go and have a look at that. So that's the monthly figure. So this is what's happened the month to date so far. So we're just over in the third week of the month.
Okay, so you've already talked about the Nikkei.
8.758,
Yep, I'm going to just jump down to the Shanghai Composite Index, which is interesting. So that's, you know, we've had these two stock markets, the Nikkei and Tokyo, right up strongly, and then we've got the Shanghai only up 2%. The Indian market's actually doing okay.
It's picked up because it's also been doing poorly this year as well.
New Zealand is actually is flat, 0.3% down, you could say. And the Straits Times Industrial Index down 0.44. The FTSE 100, if you invest in the UK market, is down 3% at the moment. But then look what Europe's doing. They're not doing much better, are they? It's pretty much the same story across Europe. The Nasdaq Composite Index is down 3.6% for the month. And then we've got the S&P 500, so the US market down 3.65,
Yep.
The All Ords is the same. How's that? Do we ever actually get the same return?
I've never seen
I've
that.
never seen it either.
I've never seen it.
And this is what makes me really curious, because I've been saying for a while that I think that, our markets are following each other at times, because you and I have always said that the Australian market could be doing something completely different to the US market. Sometimes the turns are at completely different
Well, they are.
times.
Sometimes they're earlier, sometimes they're later.
But to see that percentage exactly the same, it's got me really intrigued. And, we've been saying for a while that the fund managers in Australia have been doing the copycat thing.
Well, they have.
Of some of the sectors in the US
But our
market, then
sectors
copying
our
here.
market's completely different. Ours is really top-heavy financials, very top-heavy financials, and their materials.
Yeah, whereas they're
Theirs is
tech-heavy and
tech-heavy.
financials. Yeah.
Yeah, so tech, if you look at the top,
But then think about it from this point of view, okay, if America has homegrown tech and that's their huge industry,
yeah, well, they steal it from us.
and the financials,
Yeah.
that's a bit nasty, and the financial
Well, they do.
sector are
Yeah.
really heavy
Correct.
in their market. In our market, obviously, the financials are heavy, and we've got the materials sector, which is the backbone of Australia. That's where Australia are making their money. So it makes sense to me that the market's spread in that way, doesn't it, to you?
Well, yeah.
It's logical to think.
Yeah, but I mean, our market is very much is very much resources driven.
Yeah, so
too,
what's
in the
happening
top
with the
end.
techs at the moment? If the materials sector's been diving, so
Well, our tech sector is doing okay. It's not doing brilliantly, but it's doing okay because we've actually got a pretty good mid-cap to low-end tech sector. We don't have really I mean, obviously Afterpay now.
I'm talking about the US, because I know you've
the
always
US.
got your finger on that.
Well, the tech
pulse.
sector in the US is looking a lot weak. If you look at the FANG stocks, I looked at those not last week. I think it was last week for the show we do for Flicks.
Yep.
So I looked at that. I looked at the FANG stocks, and then I added Microsoft in it and Nvidia
Okay.
into the mix. So there was FANG stocks as 5, and plus Nvidia and Microsoft, and that was over. That's just those 7 stocks is over 30% of the whole market in
Right.
the US. Just those 7
So that's
stocks.
going to tell you a lot.
Yeah, and talking about Apple and Microsoft number 1 and 2. So if they're going down and those other 5 are going with it, and they're all going down, then you'd think the S&P 500 is going down because they are such a huge weighting. Then when you add some of the top financial stocks like JP Morgan and some of those other ones, you're starting to look like a sector or the market that will come down. And I think the US market's coming down into a low.
Okay.
But it is interesting at the moment. If we go and have a look again, and we can look at the year-to-date figures because they're really different
Just
as
quickly
well.
though, we've also got a couple of other markets to talk about here. So the S&P ASX 200 is actually down 3.8%. That's our market there, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average again,
3.9.
that's the US. And then we've got, I'll just skip down to the Hang Seng there at the bottom, 6.7% down.
And yet the Shanghai's right up.
Yeah, so
It's completely the opposite. I know there's a lot of issues around Asia at the moment. And I think, Australia with Asia is a little bit more aligned to Asia, but right now we're actually more aligned with Europe and the US. I mean, obviously there's issues around China with us and obviously trade deals with China and everything else, but we send all our resources off to Japan and China and they send them back to us with a lot of value add on it.
yeah.
So that's really what's happening. But looking at the yearly figures, just to sort of wrap up today, is
Do you want to just scroll up to the top?
roll up to
Yep.
the top. So India doing really, really well, up 22%. Tokyo up 16. Nasdaq up just under 16. S&P 5. And I don't think these figures are going to change too much on the Nasdaq. I think, and the S&P 500. I think they'll end up the year around those same figures.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a bit of a pullback through there. The Nasdaq comp, I don't think it's going to be higher than that.
Yeah, and generally we see double the pullback on the US market than we see on our own. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the same, because we've already seen the big material stocks pull back significantly.
Yeah, I think our market's got a little bit more to go down there, but I think our market will probably finish
Be
off
more
somewhere.
resilient.
A bit more resilient on that. I think it's a lesser pullback of 8 to 12%.
It's good to look at the big markets, isn't it? Just to see what's happening from a big picture perspective, so that we can see whether are there any similarities and what can we learn from that as a reflection on our own market.
Yeah, and I do know some people really want to get into ETFs in some of these overseas markets. So looking at some of this and looking at that big picture will help them to determine where they want to put their money.
Okay, great. Well, that's all from us on world markets. Now it's time to get into our first email for the night.
All right, our first email tonight is from Chris, who says, "Hi, Dale and Janine. What do you think the wisest move is regarding capital gains tax? Is it best to pay or put aside capital gains tax throughout the year, or do you think it's best to use the capital gain and then pay the capital gains at the end of the financial year? Keen to hear your thoughts. Cheers, Chris. Good question, isn't it?
Very
and while we're
good
answering,
question.
Chris, remember, ring 92909988 to check our talk to Janine and I. But capital gains
So what
tax.
do you do about that? What would you think is the right way to go?
There's no right
Speak
and
to your
wrong way.
accountant.
Speak to your accountant is the first one. Because at the end of the day, you've got to pay the capital gains tax, but you don't know what that necessarily is going to be until the end of the year, because you might make $1,000 out of one trade, and you think, oh, okay, well, what's X percent of that? I'll put that in a bank account. But by the end of the year, you might have had 3 or 4 losses in a row, and now it's just wiped out your capital gains. So
Have you ever tried to hold something past 30 June just to get over that line so you get to hold it for the next 12 months?
I've rarely ever been in that situation.
Yep.
I've really rarely been in. I know people do it, but I've rarely been in that situation. I know some people sell pre-30 June and then try and buy back after the 30 June so they can realise losses and offset things. I know people that have done like options contracts and they've prepaid interest or prepaid margin loan interest to get that expense into this year to reduce their capital gains tax or their tax on their investment. So there's lots of different strategies, but I don't think there's no right way or wrong way on this, to me, because again, it's hard to work out what your capital gain will be at the end of the financial year.
You have an opinion though, which is that you don't just sell for a tax reason.
No, you don't tell. But he's not saying that. He said, well, what do I do? If I've sold and got a capital gain, he said, well, do I put some money aside in a bank account and wait and leave it sitting there so I can pay the tax? Or do I use that to keep trading with?
No, we would just keep the portfolio rolling over.
I would just keep the portfolio rolling, and that's generally what I would do. And but you may be in a position where you need to downsell some of your position to pay your capital gains tax at the end of the year. That's really what it said. That's the only risk you're going to have. So,
That's right. Well, our next email is from Angus. Hi guys, could you analyse Costa's Group Holdings Limited for long-term investment? And do you think it's worth it? Regards, Angus. Good question.
Costa.
All
I know
right,
it's your
we've got
favourite
Costa.
stock.
No, I was going to say it's actually yours. Being a Geelong boy, when we talk about this, we always have that joke. It's getting a little bit old though, isn't it?
I know, that's why I said it first.
All right. Looking at the pullback, it really hasn't changed much from when we looked at it last time.
No, it hasn't.
So I don't have anything new to add. Can we finish now? Is that it?
No, you've got to answer his question properly, so do your job. What are you getting paid to do here? Come on. Give us a bit more than that.
Okay, look, normally I can talk till the cows come home about any particular stock. However, it's more or less been trading sideways. So until this stock trades above this high here, this high of 344 on the 13th of August 2021, we don't know which direction it's going in except for sideways.
It's an interesting pattern, this, isn't it? This sort of going down. It's a really interesting pattern, isn't it? It looks more bearish than bullish.
But generally you would expect the stock to rise out of that move initially, at least.
You would. The thing is, it's more volumes coming through in here, but has it bottomed? Is it about to go up? It's probably a bit early. I mean, I don't. In his thing, he says, could you have a look at it for a long-term investment? Do you think it's worth it? That would suggest to me he's not in it at the moment.
Yep.
So is this a long-term investment?
Still, when I say long-term, I get a bit, uncomfortable about that term because people could take us out of context. You've still got to set a stop loss.
Well, what is long-term? I know so many people get confused. What's long-term? I have people saying anything more than 12 months is long-term.
Yeah.
And I went, no, that's not even close to it. So for everybody watching our short, medium and long-term and what Janine and I deem short, medium and long-term, anything less than 3 months is short-term. 3 months to 18 months is more medium term, and over 18 months is long term for us. If you're talking about it in terms of the financial services industry, I know some advisors talk about 5 years as being, anything under 5 years is short term, so they're looking sort of that 5 year plus, but definitely at least 3 years is what they're talking about in terms of more medium to longer term. But from Janine and I, anything over 18 months for us is long term as traders, but it's a context of being as a trader or a really active investor. That's a sort of a long-term move. And I've never held a stock for 3 years. Have you ever held a stock for 3 years?
Probably.
Probably. I've never had one. I can't remember ever holding one for 3 years.
Right.
I just get too antsy. No. No, I just pick better ones. No, I don't do that either.
That's
yes, I
funny.
Do. Cool.
Right, move on.
Okay, moving on. We have a question from Andrew who says, hello, Janine and Dale. I was pleased when listening to Dale's podcast a couple of weeks ago when he mentioned telehealth being one of the boom industries for the future. I've had some thoughts for a while and researched this sector, and one company I've been watching is Hera Med HMD. I've recently bought on fundamentals at 18.5 cents and interested to hear your thoughts. Cheers, Andrew. While we answer Andrew's question, if you do want to chat to Janine and I, 9290 give us a call now.
I actually think this looks interesting from the point of view that it's pulled back to what I would say is a potential important level for the stock, and it could start to move back up again. But right now, if you're looking at which we always do, so we're always looking at the bird's eye view of what's going on with any stock first. And the bird's eye view means you look at the monthly chart first, which a lot of people never, ever look at. But it's probably one of the most important price activity that you'll see on any stock. So if this stock starts to move back up again strongly, then we could see it challenge those highs. But this, there could be a potential downside risk in the short term for it. So he's bought it, he said, at 18.5 cents. Now, I mean, I'd be looking at that if I had bought this. Now, I never would have bought it at that, but say he bought it at this price over here when it was trading up in 2021.
He said recently.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. But if he had bought it over here, and he potentially would have had a number of sell reasons.
I hope he's got good fundamentals because he's got bigger.
But he's bought it based on a catch a falling knife scenario, really, because it's been falling when he's purchased it.
My intestinal fortitude's not that strong.
However, given he's in it, if you're in this stock and it started to move down strongly, then you'd have to get out of it below your buy price, because it means that that trend could continue to fall. However, if it starts to move back up and gets through this point here, could keep going.
It's got stuff all volume in it though. That's how small it is. I mean, you look at this last week, there was
I just like the pattern of the way that it's
1.9 million shares at 21 cents. There's not a lot of volume in that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I mean, if it trades above the high of this week's bar, that's its first sign that it's going up, because it's got to get back above that high initially. But I just think that it could consolidate short term, but if it goes back through that blue line, then I'd be concerned.
Yeah, I mean, as he said, he bought it on fundamentals, so obviously it's got good fundamentals, or I would hope it's got good fundamentals.
But that's never a reason that we've always got to have the money following that.
Well,
it's one thing to have the fundamentals saying that it's time to buy, but it's another thing if the chart's actually falling. So therefore the market's not convinced that those fundamentals are there, so what are you looking at? So I mean, that's all.
Well, that's the interesting question. I know we get a lot of people. Look, a recent survey that I did on our YouTube channel under the community section, I asked, a question what people are looking for, and about 80% are investors. And so, but we also get a lot of fundamental people.
So you're saying 80% are investors, not traders? Is that
yeah,
what
they're
you're
not
saying?
traders.
Right.
There's only about 15-ish% of traders, or call themselves or traders, or they're wanting to trade the market. Where 80% are more investors looking for long-term gains on the market. I know we have a few people that are more into fundamentals that do watches.
But I wonder if that's just because if they had the knowledge, they would change their perspective on that.
Well, that's what I think is the people that say they're investors would actually trade if they actually had the knowledge. So just the fear of trading is the issue. They think the market is scary, so they're sort of long-term buy and hold.
So maybe we could ask another question.
Maybe we could. Maybe that's up to you. Maybe you can ask another
Just
question.
put myself in it.
But I know with the fundamental people, they look at it and some of them go, I don't look at the charts. They're a bit scary to me, and you can't do this on the chart. Why don't you talk about the fundamentals? And we do, but we don't get into the depth on the show, because it just would take up too much time on the show. But to me, it's about having a bit of a balance there.
Okay. Well, our next email is from Surav. Hi, Dale and Janine. Please keep on doing the wonderful work you guys are doing. I kindly need your help and insight into 3 shares that I'm holding on to and possibly should sell and cut my losses. They are 5GN, bought at 150, HUM, bought at 146, SLR, bought at 229, and FMG, bought at 23.21. I wanted to know if I should hold or sell. Thanks, Surav. Now, Dale, you selected 5GN. Why did you choose that one out of the list that he had?
Well, I went through this really good, deep dive technical analysis and put all this whole balance sheet of what the positives and negatives, and then I said, no, I'll just do the first one. I always do that. Anybody that puts multiples, we only ever do one stock, and it's always the first one.
But if I hadn't had the option to choose, I would have picked SLR to have a look at.
Well, that's your choice, but I always go, to me it's just fair. Whatever you put down first is what we do.
Yep.
If you put down 10 others, I'm only doing the first one.
Okay. So. All right. 5GN Networks then is an extremely volatile stock. Just have a look at it.
Which is good. It's challenging you to do it.
It could be a good trading stock, but trying to get into... I'm just going to skip from the... We can see the monthly chart on the left-hand side. You can see how it just goes straight up in 3 or 4 months, which is attractive, but then it just goes straight back down in a few months as well. So I'll just enlarge this one so we can all see that nice picture there. We can look at this move here. Say in July, this big rise here It's a range of 46.5 cents on a stock that was trading at about $1. So, I mean, goodness, that's just massive, isn't it? But then how do you get in that? So let's just go and have a look for a sec. I'm just going to put a horizontal line just so I've got a marker so I know where I am when we go to the daily chart. And I'll just have a look where that appears on the left-hand side. So you literally would have had to been watching it on the day and got in there on that day of the 22nd of July to actually get into. If you waited till the end of the week, it would have been too late.
It would have been too late.
And then the challenge is, how do you get out of this thing? You know, it's just not easy to get out of. And in fact, you would have probably had to get out of it on a really short term strategy.
Yeah, but he doesn't say where he bought them at this point in time, so we don't really know. He just told us the price, so it could have been over here or it could have been more recently. But right now, this is a good argument for using stop losses.
But look, the price that he bought it at may have actually been a reasonable entry to buy it.
It may have been.
Right? There could have been a trend line down there potentially. So, you know, he's got in there and the momentum had started to change to the upside a little bit, not as bullish as what it looked like. See how the stock actually looked different on this side to what it looks like when it's trying to take off this bottom here. People try to bottom pick and get stocks there, but in actual fact, you're better off to wait for that bounce up off the bottom. But it looks to me like he's tried to wait for that, and then
well, you don't know because you don't know that when he bought. We know the price, we just don't know when he bought them. But would you say he's tried to bottom pick or pick something that's cheap?
No, I think he's tried to. If he was bottom picking, he would have been trying to get in down at these levels here, but I think he's tried to get in when the stock started to move back up again.
Okay, so just to help him, he's saying should he hold or sell or whatever else?
Well,
so
it looks like he's got no stop loss in place.
Well,
that's what we have to assume.
It's down 42% roughly on that.
So it's always a question of a much broader picture here. Do you want to keep losing money on a stock that's continuing to fall? And I guess if we look at this low of this bar Friday the 2nd of July, that's 85 cents, right? So the low of this bar here is 86.5. Now, you'd have to say, it's going to be obvious if the stock takes out that low that the downtrend's continuing.
I don't like it at the moment at all.
But in saying that, if this stock rises in the next couple of weeks and takes off above the high of this week's bar, it could just be testing some support to take off again.
Yeah, but this is one of these stocks. This is sort of an example, and I'm assuming some of these other stocks that he's got are similar examples of that because he's saying, you know.
You're looking at me in a concerned way.
No, I'm just concerned with the philosophy on this because there's so many people buying the stock and then they hang on and it's lost 40%, and they don't realise the cost to their investing and their trading. It's really is of holding these stocks for months and months and months, losing money. And people say to us, "Oh, your course is expensive." Well, so is doing this. This is far more expensive than getting a course, getting out because he's losing opportunity being in another stock. They're also in a loss, and they're probably in a situation where they're praying it's going to go back up to where they paid.
If you put 10,000 into this, you're down already almost $5,000.
Yeah. If you put 10, if you put 1,000 in it, you're down $400 or $500.
Yep. So,
but when is it going to go back up to the buy price? Because that's what they'd be thinking now. In my mind, a lot of these people say, "Well, geez, if it gets back up to where I paid for it, then I'll get out of it." But if it does that, then they'll still hang on to it anyway.
Well, I just want to come back and shrink the chart back up again for a minute. Now, looking at this, it's possible that this stock could trade back up into this sort of zone where it was in this sideways move here and some of these moves here. So there is but it has to get above this week's bar and then start moving up strongly to see that happen.
It doesn't look like it's going to do that for my mind. So again, that's really where you have a stop loss in place. So that's really all it needs to be. But anyway, well, before we get into the topic for tonight, later on in the show, we're going to give you another chance or another opportunity to call into the show and ask Janine and I a question live. So stay tuned for the opportunity. More importantly, be ready to dial when we tell you to call. Now, it is time we get into tonight's topic. Cryptocurrencies crash. Is now the time to buy or sell Bitcoin?
Investors can make spectacular profits trading cryptos, but the opposite's also true, especially if they don't understand the risks. To understand the risks, there are many questions that need answering. But what are the questions? When it comes to cryptocurrencies, we shared a lot of that information on a live show for you back in January this year. Tonight, to take this to another level that I'm sure will be even more interesting, we're going to answer some questions some of the most important questions that you need to know and understand to answer yourselves, including whether now is the right time to buy, hold or sell cryptocurrencies, how do you hold on to your profits, and how can you determine when a crash is likely to occur. We also take a look at two of the biggest cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and share what the charts indicates likely to unfold for both of these cryptos and whether they're about to crash or boom.
All right, as cryptocurrencies push to move away from being the Wild West to becoming part of the mainstream for payments and investing, it has created a volatile market, and as most know, there has been an explosion in the number of cryptocurrencies in existence. Now, Statistica reported in August there are more than 6,000 cryptocurrencies in the world. Now, we also found that just 20 cryptocurrencies make up around 90% of the total crypto market. Now, Bitcoin is by far the largest, up $850 billion, that's what it's worth, and Ethereum is worth $350 billion. And some other big ones are Binance Coin, Cardano, and Tether. And we do need to remember that this is still an unregulated market. However, the regulators are looking at how cryptocurrencies will be regulated in Australia.
As cryptos continue to grow in popularity, more investors are finding a place for cryptos in their portfolios. It is estimated that around 1 in 6 Australians have some exposure to the crypto market. What is alarming, though, is that Australian investors have been stung by crypto scams to the tune of 25 million in 2021, and this number is growing. When considering even the biggest cryptocurrencies by risk, currently, even the biggest cryptocurrencies on the market would be considered high risk due to their volatility.
All right, so tonight we're going to show you how volatile cryptos can be, which is great when they go up, but not when they go down. Above all, the most important thing for the investor or the trader needs to consider is the risk that you're taking before you buy, and be clear on exactly how you will manage it. Now, 90% of people ignore this. Now, our advice is simply this: if you don't understand it, you don't have proper rules, and you have not proven you can trade stocks successfully, don't put your money at risk trying to trade cryptos, as that is really not wise. Okay, now to answer some of the big questions. First up, is now the time to buy and hold, or buy and or sell crypto? So what is it?
Well, that really depends on the crypto. It's a cryptic question you've asked me.
Oh, okay. So is now the time to buy, hold or sell?
Question mark. Let's have a look at the charts and find out. Not every crypto will rise at the same time, and nor will they fall at the same time. So the only way to answer this question is by taking a look at the charts. So let's get into the charts.
Why did I think you were going to do that? Everything's about the charts for you, isn't it?
Isn't it? And you'll be surprised to know that I've only got 3 charts to look at this week, and people might say, oh,
why
really?
did you keep your shoes and socks on?
No, well, I'm just tired of listening to you complain about me wanting to get that extra chart in, so I thought I'd go completely the opposite way this time, just to challenge you.
But it is really, really, really important people understand it, because obviously, you know, it's great to stay in the big ones, and that's the thing, is what we constantly say with stocks, but it's even more so with cryptocurrencies, staying with Bitcoin and Ethereum. To me, they're the big ones.
Just to give you a bit of an idea about the volatility, or not you because you've looked at these before, but other people, to give them an idea about what's going on, you can see there that just the fall from the high in that short space of time, and this is normal for cryptos to see them move in this sort of, we've got a 55% decline on
this
Bitcoin.
Year.
Yeah. Okay. So and look at the fall that occurred down the bottom here on this weekly chart. I'm just going to expand that up so we can see it more clearly. But you can see the big fall that happened on the Bitcoin at the end of this decline in March 2020 with the COVID pullback. And the idea is to just have a look at how far the overall declines are. So if we also have a look at what happened to Bitcoin as part of this overall move, because it was already falling,
It was already falling from 2019.
It fell 71% over that time. So is that the sort of roller coaster that people want to be on? Compare that to CSL or some of the other stocks, and while they might seem a little bit boring to those people who think that they're cowboy or cowgirl traders, and I know a few, you know, it's not going to be boring to make money if you're actually on a good thing and you know what you're doing. So this 83% decline is not something your portfolio can bear. And why would you bother having that boat anchor in there if this is potentially going to happen again. So let's just work on that assumption, thinking, okay, if it's fallen that far before, where might Bitcoin fall to? So some people would say, no, it's never going to fall to that level. I don't believe it. 70%. Is it possible, Dale? Do you think
Isn't
it
that
might fall
famous
there?
last words? It's never going to do that again. The market's never going to crash again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to preface it. You and I are not cryptocurrency experts. So, and before the people out there in cryptocurrency world that go, hey, Dale and Janine, you shouldn't talk about these things.
But that's got nothing to do with the actual underlying fundamentals of something. Because we don't proclaim to be experts on fundamentals of companies either. But what we do is look at what the prices and the price actions telling us, and then let the chart tell us what is more probable. That's all it is.
This has every chance of going down that 70%. Has every chance, I think, based on what I'm seeing on the chart and what I have seen on the charts. It's in this move up through here and failing at this point in time. If we just put a bit of a
now, while you're doing that, the thing that I like about Bitcoin is the fact that it's got that underlying strength right at that point there, around that 28,000 points, US dollars. This is in, actually, I should say. So when we're looking at the chart, that is a really strong sign that the stock's actually done, that the Bitcoin's actually done that, because all the way across there to the left-hand side, you can see in 2020, is it early 2020, just back here?
Yeah.
January 2021, that low coincides with this low. Really nice to see that sort of activity going on. Now we're actually seeing this pullback. If Bitcoin continues to fall and it falls below 38,000, I think it's in trouble.
I
if
think
it goes
it's in
below
trouble
that.
too. I think if it falls below that sort of 38,000, I think it'll go below that low at 28,000, and it'll probably head right down into this sort of area.
Yeah, yep. But look, I mean, for it to go bullish again, because we also posed the question, well, what about if it actually turns and starts to go back up? Where should people be buying it if they're thinking about buying it? Where is the opportunity? It has to go above this month's bar, doesn't it?
Most definitely. I think it'd have to go past the bar from 2 months earlier. I think it'd have to go past this because, and the thing is, people ask a reason, well, how do you know that this is, and they start quoting all this stuff about Bitcoin and how it's the future. And I don't, look, to me, blockchain is brilliant, and I think things are going to happen around Bitcoin and
so what you're saying is you agree with these people who are saying that, but there's a time to actually
But one thing I know with 100% certainty, carved in stone, put my hand on my heart, the whole thing is human behaviour does not change. It never has, never will.
Regardless of what they're trading.
Regardless of what they're trading. And that tells me, looking at boom and bust markets of the past, that this one, whatever it is, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's tulips or whether it's something else, will all go through the same cycles as it's growing, and we see that no matter what it is, we see these same cycles. And I think right now this is setting up in a cycle that's going to look like it's going to come down again.
I mean, one positive thing for it, and I agree, but one positive thing for it is if it were to come back below this 37,800, and we think that then the real risk is it could end up at this 70% mark, it has to get back through all of that again.
Correct.
Which is going to be a challenge for it. However, I'm not going to be bearish on it though until it goes through that 38,000.
It's got to. It's just looking. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is the patterns it's doing now are looking like it's setting up to do something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And is it going to go up? And and people might be sitting out there going, Dale, you're wrong. It's going to go to 100,000 in the next 12 months. Oh, well, that's your choice.
Yep. Well, let's get them thinking about the sort of ways to look at this. So it's about the percentage upside. So I'm saying from this point here, Dale's saying from this high here. So let's just measure both of them. The upside potential is somewhere between, it could be 25, 30% looking at that high there, and depending on where it is from your point here. So if you waited until it went above this high, then you're still talking about 20% upside.
20% upside, which is reasonable.
To that all-time high.
Upside.
But it could take out that all-time high if it does that.
Now, we're not saying to people don't trade Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're not saying that. We're just saying if you do trade it, know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because then you minimise risk. So you wanted to move on?
Yeah, because, when you're talking about minimising risk, people were looking at Bitcoin when it was falling down here and thinking, okay, I'm getting in cheap. And maybe, at the time that was a good point to get into, but it wasn't a good strategy. That's the point. That's going to be repeatable. So,
correct.
Once it starts moving back up again, it's much safer to be getting in when the money's actually behind it.
Yeah, oh, look, absolutely.
Okay, so we've looked at the weekly chart. This
Yeah.
is the Bitcoin chart. So we're saying that if it goes bullish, it could end up going, it could go sky high. We could see Bitcoin trade through 70,000 points quite easily and keep
no
going.
doubt about that if it goes bullish.
Yeah, yep, and keep going. So if it does that, so that's what we're watching for in relation to Bitcoin. Do you like me
So
to?
is now the time to buy? That was one of the questions.
No.
Okay, so is now the time to sell?
I would say depending on your rules, but I would say it depends on your risk and what the stop loss is that you've got. So that's the first question. But if your stop loss is not taken out and your rules haven't been triggered, then right now I wouldn't be selling.
It's a hold at the moment
Yeah.
if you own it, based on what you're saying. Cool.
Yep, so that's Bitcoin. Now let's look at Ethereum. Looking at this, it's a similar chart, but it's far more volatile. And you can see that the volatility, the level of volatility, if we look down here, is 60.9%. Now, maybe it wasn't as much. If we go back to the Bitcoin chart just quickly, we're talking about downside on Bitcoin of, what is it? Okay, 50 odd. Who's going to split hairs over that 10% when there's a big fall like
Correct.
that? So, but the upside has been greater. So the spring back up on Ethereum is greater, but they're actually following each other.
But a
So
lot more
it's a
volume's
very-
gone in it this year.
I guess what point I'm coming to is if you had room in your strategy, like say you had a Bitcoin portion of your funds for not Bitcoin but for cryptos, and your focus was that I'm only going to buy into the top 10 cryptos that are on the market for liquidity reasons.
Yep.
Then in theory you might be focusing on the cryptos that are moving in a very similar way. So it's like BHP
You're gonna
Rio,
be
isn't
buying
it?
Same.
Are you going to buy two or are you going to buy one depending on the risk at that point? That's really the question.
But the interesting thing with this is obviously there's been a lot more of a push into Ethereum this year because people are thinking, oh, Bitcoin's so expensive, I'll get into Ethereum. And the volume on this has really taken off this year. But this too will follow the same patterns as Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay.
So it eventually the more volume that comes through, the more it becomes normal.
Yep, I agree. Look, let's just quickly have a look. Can I get rid of your
You can do
your
whatever
stuff
you
there?
like.
It's
You're in
just-
charge of the mouse.
You've just messed up my chart.
Sorry.
It's a big mess.
You can sack
How
me
many
later.
times have I heard you say that my chart's a mess?
Well, they are.
Well, they've got a lot of things on them, but you've got to do the analysis. Okay, so 81% up on Bitcoin from the low and 134% just to show you the sort of levels of volatility. But what I find interesting too is if you bought this back at the high in, what was that, 2018, you would have ridden at 200% to the high.
Oh, that's pretty
Bitcoin,
good.
yeah, Bitcoin on the other side, let's go back to the high here, you would have made 200 and something percent. If we go to Tesla,
Yep.
now this is a stock as opposed, people always talk about ETFs and stocks, and I was having a really good chat with someone today about preference for stocks over ETFs and that the person was more in favour of stocks. Looking at that, you can make more money on stocks if you pick the right ones.
But it's not as sexy.
But people are talking
I'm a
about
Bitcoin trader,
Bitcoin.
sounds more sexy.
Yeah. So where's that? I'm just not quite sure what we're comparing here exactly, other than that we're just looking at a rise of about 237% to the high, and people are raving about this when, look at Tesla. And it's a similar chart. You look at the shape of the chart. It's a little bit different over recent weeks, but it's had that big burst.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying, is the more volume goes into something, the more normal it becomes and the more predictable the patterns are. And so
Now, you didn't know that was my punchline, did you?
I did not know that was your punchline.
I snuck that one in.
I could tell you a lot of stories about, I got friends in crypto, I got people that teach crypto that I talk to, I know people in the US who are all into crypto, so I talk to them all the time. So I do understand a lot about it, but we just need to be really, really careful. So in summary, we believe now is not the time to be buying either Bitcoin or Ethereum, simply because the current risk of a fall is higher. Now, if they rise from here, the upside in the short term is around, as Janine showed you, maybe 20%. If you do currently hold a position, carefully consider your exit strategy. You always need to protect that downside. So if you are holding a crypto and you do not know how you're going to exit, you do need to take a reality check. And that means standing in front of the mirror. Learning how to trade properly means knowing how to buy and sell, not one or the other. It is also a skill that you can use for the rest of your life to generate significant income and growth to your capital safely. Now, Bitcoin Bitcoin and Ethereum are right on the precipice of telling us whether they're about to crash. Now, Janine and I believe extreme caution is required right now, and especially if they fall below those levels that we talked about on the chart, respectively. Now, we're going back to Michelle Obama's quote, which is very apt here in that you can't make decisions based on fear and the possibility of what might happen. But when it comes to trading, I would also say you can't make decisions based on greed as to what you think might occur. We will answer more interesting questions on cryptos in future shows. Now, that's it on our topic for tonight. Now, before we get into our next email, I hope you have your phone ready and have been patiently waiting for the opportunity to call into the show to chat to Janine and I. So now's the time to get dialing. The number you need to dial is 0392909988. Now, while you call us, we'll get into answering the next email. So call us now. All right, the next email is from Newman, who says, "Hi Dale, thanks to the book. It provides a very different perspective of trading, and I was looking to have some of this strategy for some time. Glad I read it. Below are a few of my shares of ASX 20 on my analysis. This, in light of your book, is as per below. Not asking for any financial advice, just my understanding of the book. 1 Westpac, 2 Telstra, 3 NAB, 4 CSL. Newman, yes, you are asking me very much for financial advice, Newman, the way you actually worded your email.
We can't do that.
So we can't do that, and because I've taken out some of his email anyway.
Yeah.
And we're only going to handle the one stock anyway. We don't.
And
look
I
at all
like the one you picked in this case.
Which? Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I got it right finally.
Comment.
Okay, so while people are calling 92909988, Jenny's going to talk about Westpac.
All right, you can see Westpac on your screen there. Now look at the monthly chart on the left-hand side. You can see that how volatile Westpac has been through COVID. So we did see, I'm just going to quickly show you the sort of scenario that unfolded. There are 53% through COVID, but it's actually almost recovered all of those gains. And looking at Westpac, after the next pullback, which we believe is occurring at the moment on Westpac, if we see it take out that low, then we're going to see a little bit more of a fall on the stock as well as other banks. A move back above, probably, either high is fine, but as long as it gets above this $26, $27 zone, then, Westpac could end up back up here. So we could see sort of between 10 and 20% over the medium term in bank stocks after they have this next pullback. So I'd feel more comfortable with the bank stocks after the pullback, but, in the short term, it may take off first rather than the pullback.
I actually covered the banks in my market report yesterday, actually. Yeah, I covered those because I looked at the profitability of the banks, which was some research done. So I'd both like Westpac, NAB, and ANZ all got,
Just pick all banks, is that what you're saying?
Any bank will do, yeah. Which bank?
Don't pick the ETF, pick the banks.
Pick the bank. All right, well, we've got a caller on the line. I believe we have somebody called Mac. Are you on the line, Mac?
I am indeed.
Well, welcome to the show, Mac. Where are you from?
I'm from the Gold Coast.
Ah, lovely place to be. I wish I was there right now. I'd be a bit more freedom than Melbourne.
Can you beam me up?
Yeah, where's the transporter?
Beam me up.
What's your question for us today, Mac?
I just like your assessment of WAM.
WAM, is that what you said?
That's correct.
Do you own that stock?
I do. I have some in my super and some in my own account.
Ah, fantastic. So it's more of a medium to longer term hold for you at the moment, is it?
Pardon?
It's more of a medium to longer term type of hold for you?
Yes, I've had it for a number of years.
Okay, well, I'll let Janine get onto the chart and have a look at it for you, Mac. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mac. Well, I can see why he's calling about it, because you'd be disappointed if you'd been holding that for a few years, because it's really done nothing. And that's the challenge, isn't it, with some stocks just holding on to it.
It was such a good stock for quite a while. I mean, obviously looking at that, it hasn't been as good the last couple of years.
Yeah, and there were lots of reasons to get out of it, lots of signals, trend lines, everything to exit it well before the COVID fall. It was giving indications of that all the way through here, this period here in 2018 to get out of it. But look, that's all good and well. If you've got the stock now, what are you going to do with it?
Well, I think super fund and he's
I think it looks bullish.
I think it looks bullish too. I do. I think probably the bad news is probably all gone. I mean, he was down if you're looking at the chart. how far he was down there for a while, because I know it's really challenging when you're watching your share and you're down 43% from a high. I mean, he's had it for years, he said, so he may have bought it somewhere back through here and might have still been in profit, even though in the COVID low, he probably might have still been in profit. But that's really tough watching your portfolio do that and not doing much for the last couple of years.
Yeah. So look, I mean, as long as it doesn't go below this low strongly, because if it takes out that low, then it could just keep coming back down to test these levels at around $1 or below the $2 mark. That's the short-term risk. But if it pushes up and then takes out this high here, we could see it challenge that high and possibly go through.
Yeah, I mean, I like it at the moment because the market's been a bit bearish the last 4 or 5 weeks. But here it's a bit more bullish, isn't it?
It is. Now we have a question from somebody else. We have to move on. Thank you very much for that question. It was an awesome one. We have a question from Nash. Hi, Dale and Janine. Just curious on your thoughts on Bailador Tech Investment. Basically, they are a startup investment company. They provide capital for tech IPOs and seem to have a decent track record thus far. They will either hold position in these companies long term or sell their stake for profit, which is returned to shareholders. I got in at $1.45 late August. Kind regards, Nash. Okay. So look, I mean, this is another interesting stock to look at, tech type investment one. It's taken out that recent all-time high, which is a great thing to see any stock do, but it's just pulling back, having some short-term selling happen with profit takers see it take through highs and they just, decide to get out. And do you think it's warranted if someone's selling it once it takes out that high?
No, but I understand what people do. I mean, there's a lot of, and I think I was trying to explain it on my market report, is so many people know about support and resistance and they think, wow, but you and me never, ever, ever buy or sell because of support and resistance. There's always another...
That's part of the equation.
It's one part of a whole equation that we put together, but some people do buy on support and resistance when it hits a level or breaks that level. But what they don't think is the industry knows that as well and they push prices around. So when it went through that all-time high, there might have been a lot of people saying, well, I'm going to buy when it gets through that. So then the industry came in and just starts selling into that extra volume to create more transactions. So to me, but hey, it was so bullish. So as long as it stays up around here, and to me, and it has every opportunity to turn around and then keep moving up again. So once it settles, but we're only talking a couple of days in this week at the moment, so it's nothing to be worried about. Yeah,
so just wait and see if it pulls up, and then just have a stop loss in place just in case it goes the other way. That's all you really can do. But it looks bullish, doesn't it?
It does look bullish to me, so I think that's all right. I think we have another caller on the line.
You took the words right out of my mouth, literally.
Is it? Oh, you're going to introduce them? Or is it me?
Yeah. Okay, great. We have the next caller is Caleb on the line. Hello, Caleb. Where are you?
Hi guys, how are you?
Where are you calling from tonight, Caleb?
Sydney. I'm from Sydney.
Sydney, fantastic.
We won't hold that against him, will we?
No, and your stock is WiseTech, is it?
Yes. I bought it at $27.
Oh, Dale's going to love you, isn't he? Because he loves talking about this stock. Fantastic.
Yes, I've been watching you for over a year from Dale. So.
And what's your question about this stock, Caleb?
Yes, I've taken my profits and I've used it actually. I just wanted to see what you guys thought of it or what your opinion is.
Okay, awesome. We're happy to do that for you. All right, we've got the WiseTech on the screen right now, and you can see that the monthly chart's showing this big boom through to a new all-time high after that consolidation sideways. So right now, you can't get a trend line underneath that rise. There's no exit rule to get out of it. So it'd just be a hold right now, wouldn't it?
Look, I would be holding it, but didn't he say he sold out and taking profits?
Well, look, I mean, that's what he's looking at. So.
Oh, he's looking at it. I thought he said he'd done that. No.
He just wanted to know your thoughts on it.
He wanted to know your thoughts on it, not me. So, I'd be hanging on to this. I'd just be putting a trailing stop loss on it, which is really, really hard because you're seeing something like this blow off. And a lot of traders get panicking on this sort of stuff where you see this massive, massive move and they go, wow, it's flown up. So where do I, if I put my pointer
So
on
what
there.
you're saying is wait to see it pull back and then choose a stop loss. Is that what
Well,
you're
it's
saying?
like, I always talk about it's like growing up and down stairs. Your market moves up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. And it's finding flaws. And so when you walk upstairs, you put your foot down to find support on the
So
step.
you've got to accept some downside
So you've got to
as part of
accept
that
the
motion.
downside risk, but a lot of traders will panic and they go, oh, I've got all this extra profit because I bought in, around this sort of $33 mark. And I'm not saying Caleb's doing this at all.
Yeah.
And they go, wow, it's gone up to $54. I've made around 70%. And they're afraid of losing their profit, so they jump out too early because...
Yeah, because what you're saying is it's not just the one trade that's the issue. It's the whole process of trading and how you're going to trade every other trade after that, isn't it? Manage it
Yeah,
properly.
and absolutely, it's correct. It is the whole thing around that. And right now I'd be staying with it. I'd just be having an exit strategy on it. That's pretty much what I would be doing.
Okay, all right.
All right, well, we've got another email question now. And this one is from Stuart who says, hi, Dale. Thanks for the great content. Could you please share your thoughts on Whitehaven Coal? I entered at $2.08 in June with the intention of holding for 12 to 18 months. Thanks. Cheers, Stuart.
Well, I think he's done pretty well right now, so Stuart can just sort of have a little beat on the chest, I think, can he?
Oh, so King Stuart. Hail, King Stuart.
Okay, so it looks quite good at the moment, but I think it may be very close to a resistance level there, in the short term at least anyway, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of selling coming in there. So the stock's dropped down the last week and a half, it's been down. It's just really taken off so strongly. So let's just have a look at exactly how far it's risen in the last few weeks. So it actually took off 48% in the last few weeks, which is a really nice little rise.
That's a massive move.
Yeah, so people will be looking at that and thinking, okay, do I sell? Well, like you just said for the last call that we spoke to, there is no exit there yet. And to try to get a trend line up underneath it, that's really, what have you done with my trend line? You've hidden it, haven't you?
What do you mean I've done with your trend line?
Okay, so here I'm looking for a line up here, but I can't get one probably just yet up there unless maybe I go a little bit tighter. So if we get a line up in there, that's probably a good guide, if anything, about what the stock could do in the short term. If it goes below that line, then there's a risk to the downside, isn't there?
Well, it is, but what it's doing now is not really any different than it's done before. You look over here on the left and it just goes bang, bang, and it's just doing the same thing again. And will it do it to the same veracity? Obviously it went from, whatever that price is, 41 cents or right up to like $6. It went from here, whatever that is, around 70 or 80 cents all the way up to over $6. So here it's a little bit higher. It's around 80 cents. Is it going to go up to that again? It is a cyclical stock.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if it peaks out somewhere around that 340, 350, 360 mark, somewhere around there in the short term. And it has a little bit of a sideways move and before we see the next move up, but it could be quite volatile.
It could be quite volatile, so yeah, I totally agree with you.
All right, we have another caller on the line. This time it's Cam. Hi, Cam, how are you going? Good to have you on the show tonight.
Good, how are you, Jenny?
Great, thanks. Look, Cam, where are you from? Would you mind me asking?
From Sydney.
Sydney, another Sydney person. You're taking over, you guys, aren't you?
So where's all the Melbourne people? No, we love Sydney people.
It's all the Sydney and the Victorian people because we're in lockdown and they're bored.
No, they just love your analysis on the stocks. So does Cam, do you own the stock at all? I think Cam's gone. Sorry, he's back again.
I bought a share for West Farmer on the 1st of August. The price.
What price did you pay for a Cam?
$60.09.
Okay, so you bought it in August, the start of August, for $60.09.
Yeah, I bought 31st August, and I look at it, keep going down. It's time to sell it.
Okay, so it's kept going down since you bought it.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next stop you're going to buy, Cam? Because I'll short that one.
Oh.
No. Thanks, Cam. Janine's going to go and have a look at the stock for
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, mate.
You're being silly.
Thank you.
All right. Just looking at West Farmers, we can see there on the chart, Cam, it's had a bit of a fall, okay, so the last couple of weeks, but you have done what we tried to catch a falling knife. So when you're trying to catch something, imagine a train that's just going flat out and all of a sudden you try to stop that train. Sometimes they'll derail essentially. So you've tried to get in on this thing when it's actually a bit out of control in terms of the selling to the downside, you're better off to wait until a stock actually starts to rise and move back up. The reason being is because it could just push back up and it could go down again. That's the real risk with Wesfarmers in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this stage, we're talking about a number of weeks down. It's not looking super strong right now. It's an error in the buy, really, isn't it?
Well,
That's
it's
what you're
below
saying.
a trend line at the moment, so that's another thing to consider. So if you had Dale's book and you just put a trend line up underneath there, it's actually just given a sell signal. So that's one point.
There's a few stocks that are doing that at the moment.
Yeah, now he might be okay because it might, there's a slim possibility that it might actually start trading back up and we could see it head back up to $62, $61. But the problem is when a stock's in the fall position like this is and it's falling away, it's got the momentum of that selling behind it. And so therefore we might end up seeing it fall away further. So that's the risk you're taking with this one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my thoughts on the market are the next 2 to 6 weeks we're going to have a low.
Okay.
We've fallen, I think, 4-5% roughly now. I think we're going to go 8 to sort of 12. I don't think we're going to go 15, but it's possible. So I think there's more to go. I mean, obviously, if the market's falling, it's probably...
top 20 stock, big stock like Wesfarmers.
Top 20 stocks is likely to show a little bit more weakness. So, but again, it really is a good sign. Right now, you probably bought in the wrong time, Cam, but it's also about having a stop loss on it. So it's having rules of entry and exit like we're talking about in the main topic. So that's really what you need to do.
All right. The next question we have is from Jeff. Hi, Dale and Janine. Thanks very much for the show. It's extremely informative and I'm very new to trading, with BSL being my first trade. And I bought BSL on the 11th of July 21 and was stopped out during yesterday's fall. I wanted to hold on and only had the courage to exit the stock thanks to your books, of course. And of course, what are your thoughts on re-entering a trade when the stock trades above the $26 level? Thanks, Jeff. All right, Jeff, we've got BlueScope there. And look, I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it, for him that he's... First of all, I'm not sure exactly where. He's saying that 21.75?
I think he bought in somewhere around in there because he said he bought recently in July. So he bought somewhere around...
Didn't he say 21.75?
Yeah, 21.75, but he bought in somewhere around there. So I think he got his...
Well, excuse me, it's just where I've marked it.
Yeah, well, I know that, but I'm talking about the time. He said July.
He said July, yeah, on the 11th of July, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's roughly...
So that's the open of that green bar that I've marked there for you already.
Yeah, correct.
So that means he's bought it and it's actually been down. So it did trigger an entry some weeks earlier and then he's purchased the stock. It triggered an entry that week as well, potentially, depending on what your rules were. And then it's taken off and then come back down. But that can often happen in the stock market where stocks take off. You've purchased it. If you confirmed an entry, whether you did or not in this case, I'm assuming that you did, and then the stock's actually pulled back down, that's just life in the stock market.
How many times have you seen that where a stock has been really bullish, it's come down a little bit and triggered a little bit of a buy, has one spurt up, and then it just tanks after that?
Yeah, because it could be at the top of its run.
It could be at the top of its run, and you're getting all the people that sort of didn't get in on all of his run go, oh, I'm going to get into this, and it has this few weeks up, it goes up 10 or 15%, and then it just goes down the other way. I'm not saying BSL is in that class, I'm just saying it happens, and that's why we have stop losses.
Okay, so what does it need to do to start move? What does it need to trade above or level for you to start thinking it's going up again?
I think it needs to find some support somewhere first. I don't think there's sort of a level that I'm going to be excited about, because it could, as long as it starts to find some support and starts to prove it's moving up, not just 1 week.
So what you're saying is there's still risk to the downside?
I think there's still risk to the downside, and I think it's fantastic he's taken his stop losses, because that's the hardest thing that people do get to do, is people can buy all the time, but how many people know how to sell and when to sell? And I think what he's done there is really, really good. Now, he is a student of ours, because he just said a student of ours. Now, what I want you to do, mate, I want you to send me a trading plan. I want you to send the trading plan of why you bought it. I want me to send you your analysis, and I want you to tell me why you sold it and when you sold it. And then I'm going to work through that with you. So I want you to send it through to me. You know how to send it through to me, so that's what I'm going to do with you, because I want to work out whether there was some sort of procedural issue, whether you got your analysis wrong and anything else. So send your charts through to me. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's awesome. I'd like to be him. Wouldn't everybody else on the show watching the show like to be?
You can send your charts to me anytime you like, and I'll check them over for you. Okay, you can do that. You just throw them over the chair to me and say, "Here you go." Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on BlueScope Steel.
If you called into the show and you missed out this week, then keep trying, as we would have enjoyed the chance to chat with you. And just to make sure that you write your questions down tonight, because otherwise you might forget what you were going to ask. And you'll get another chance to contact us or to call in next week on the show.
Well, you will get another opportunity to call us next week on the show, won't we? Because we'll be right back here. Now, remember, the best way to have your question answered is to call into the show between 7 and 8 p.m. every single Tuesday. Otherwise, you can send an email, or you can email your question right now to info@wealthwithin.com.au. Remember, you must include Wealth Within Live in the subject line. So many people don't do that. Now, remember, in order to show your appreciation for the show and helping us by answering us helping you by answering your questions and educating you, all we ask is that you subscribe to our channel first and then send your email in.
Well, that is it for tonight's show. We hope you not only enjoyed what we presented, but also received great value from our answers to your questions.
Remember to put this show into your calendar to join us right here live on the Australian Stock Market Show every Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m.
As always, thank you for joining us, and we hope that you've had a great week. We look forward to you joining us again next week. For now, goodbye, good luck, and good trading.